Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring the newest release from Colorado Craft Company. I am using two sets combined. This black cat one, totally adorable. I will probably use this for a card at a later date, but today I am using the Tombstone Witch and the Scary Pumpkin. They have their Lovely Leg series, which is where the witch comes from, and then the Big and Bold, which you guys know I'm a big fan of. And we're going to do a one-layer card, which means lots of masking. This is a long one. Get your popcorn, settle in, because we're going to be together for a minute here. So first things first, before we get too far into the video, this is part of a blog hop. There are giveaways. So make sure that you follow the link below if you're watching on YouTube to head over to the blog to comment for your chance to win. The more comments that you leave along the blog hop, the greater your chances are to win. And then there's a second way to win the entire release, which is really cool and kind of unique to Colorado Craft Company. They pick a winner based on one of the purchases through the main link, like each affiliate's main link. So if you are watching this before, I think it's October 1st is the end of the giveaway, then don't click on the individual links for each set. Use the main link that says Colorado Craft Store to be entered in for that giveaway. That's if you should so choose to make a purchase. So here I have stamped my legs, I've cut my mask, we'll talk about the mask in a minute, and I am using then the backer sheet for the pumpkin stamp set to get my placement correct. Since it is going to be a one-layer card, you want to stamp whatever's going to be in the front first, which means I have to stamp my witch first. Here, I should have had the card to scoot it over further to the left, but I didn't, so my acetate sheet was giving me a little bit of a problem, but I worked it out. It was all right. And then I will remove that, stamp down my legs, and then mask them to proceed on with the card. So when I first sat down to do this, I knew that I wanted to do a scene card, and there is a... I don't know if any of you ever watched The Office when it was on, the American version, not the UK version. And there is an episode where, and it's been turned into a meme for like people and their kids, but it is Steve Carell's character, Michael Scott, talking to another one of the employees named Toby. And Michael has come up with some harebrained scheme, and Toby is like, no, dude, that's not going to work. And his response is, why are you the way that you are? Why are you the way that you are? And that is how I felt when I was making this card. Like, I kept being like, Kelly, why? Why can you not just let it go? And I couldn't. Here is why. So I was going to just mask the legs, stamp my pumpkin. That's all that I needed to mask in order to get my stamping done. But I could not let it go. I could not just come to terms with the fact that I was going to have to copic color the background because I knew it would look better ink blended. I knew it would. And so I kind of went back and forth, even though I knew it was going to take me more time and I was going to have to cut a whole separate mask. I did it. I couldn't stop myself. So here you could stamp this as a giant pumpkin, which I totally love, and not make it scary at all. Or you could use the, like the jack-o'-lantern face that comes with it and make it a little bit spooky. I chose to use the face because I think a little bit spooky is kind of fun. I know that's not everybody's jam, and that's totally cool. Among this release was a bunch of new like Anita Duram sets and other very cute Halloween. If this is not your vibe, I would still encourage you to check out the release because there's a little bit of something for everyone. But here is where I finally just decided I was going to have to suck it up and do the masking. Even though I knew it was going to take me longer and I had other deadlines and other things that I needed to be doing, I couldn't let it go. And I guess that's one of my issues. My husband always tells me you're a perfectionist, but that isn't it. It's not that I need it to be perfect. I accept that things aren't perfect. It is that if I know that it is not the best way to do it, that will give me the best results, even if it's a shortcut, I can't allow myself to take the shortcut. It is problematic for my timetable. But anywho, so I did just go ahead and cut out the mask, just knowing that this was going to be the way that was going to look best. And I love the card, so I was right in that aspect. So I'm just doing some grasses and some sky, and there's not even very much of it, which is why I was so like, you don't need to do this. You could just copic color and it would be fine. But it just wouldn't have looked as good. It just wouldn't have. So anywho, I find that I have the same problem with all of my things. Like, I can't just cut corners for the sake of time. It bothers me. Like, if I know that I'm not doing it the way that it should be done. I worked with somebody who one time we were talking about something, I can't remember what it was, and he was like, you don't half fill in the blank anything. He's like, you just don't. He was like, there's a lot of, like, that's a hard thing to live up to if you're a person who never goes into it with just, well, I'm just going to do the bare minimum. And I guess that is true. And it is something that sometimes does frustrate me because I wish that I could be a little bit more flexible with that. But like, if I know the right way to do it, like dusting or Eric and I in the garage, 110%. Like, if I knew there was a better way to do it, or a way that if I did it over again, I could make it the result better, then I did it. For example, you guys know we're getting ready to do a craft room makeover here in a weekend. It's going to be fast. And so I'm going to have to try to put this particular part of my personality on the back end because, I have to get it done because come Monday, I have to be able to make cards again. So back to the card real quick. So for the background, I did, just spatter on. I used the Hero Art iridescent spray because it was nice and easy. I just pulled the tubing out, splattered some on in the background, and then I used some white acrylic paint to put some stars in. Once that was dry, I know it's hard to tell on the video, like it looks like I pulled it off immediately. I didn't. I waited for it to dry. And then once it's dry, I can remove my mask and then get into the copic coloring. I did just want to show you here, we talk a lot about matching copics to distress inks. This is a hex chart. If you've never seen it, Sandy Allnack spent a lot of time creating this particular hex chart. And you could fill it in and it's by color instead of your traditional copic charts being by number. So oftentimes when I'm trying to match something that maybe isn't a go-to for me, I pull this out so that I can see what colors will match the best. And then in order to blend it in, I needed to put a little bit of stars in that area in between her hand and her knee. And so just to make sure everything was cohesive, I used that same white gel pen to put a couple of stars in the sky as well. So everything, as we've talked many times, was matchy-matchy. For the pumpkin, love the size of this thing. I think it's got such a great presence, which is super fun. So I'm doing a Y08, a Y38, a YR04, and a YR09. You could also take it a little bit darker and start with a Y38 and end with an R like 29, so that it would be a little bit more on the reddish side, but that would give you a little bit of a darker shadow. I've done pumpkins like that as well, and considering we're just now getting into fall, you'll probably see it at some point. But really, I'm just following the guidelines. That's kind of how I'm adding my shading next to each kind of segment of the pumpkin where the lines are already drawn. I am just kind of extending those out with my colors and again, going from lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, just like we normally do. So, anywho, we're getting ready for this craft room makeover, and so my husband very generously spent part of his time cutting my shelves, and then he sanded, I think, 2 of them with the time that he had available to him, but it needed to get done, and we're hoping that he will be able to install them on Friday. So Friday, after I get done working, the game plan is to kind of move as much out of this room as I possibly can. So that way, when my sisters come and my mom comes on Saturday, we aren't wasting time moving things. That's kind of already been done. Plus, it will give Eric an opportunity to get into the closet, which right now is completely inaccessible. Just because of all the items that I have blocking it. And what's currently in there is a wire rack, just kind of whatever came with the house. And I knew that I wanted shelving that made more sense for my craft supplies. So what we're doing is 4, hopefully they'll fit. It's like I said, since it's inaccessible, it's kind of hard to get in there and measure. But we're hoping to do 4 just straight wood shelves across. So that way I can put my, stamps in there or die cutting machines, whatever. And have bins for things so that it's not just like everything sporadically in different drawers. And so the shelves needed to be finished, needed to be sanded, and then I needed to decide if I was going to stain them or paint them. Now, everything in my craft room outside, like in my house, my woodwork is white. And so in this room, pretty much the woodwork is white outside of this window. So they painted the trim around the window white, but the window is still brown. It's very bizarre. But anywho, so everything in here is black, with the exception of 2 things. The shelves on my wall that sit right above my desk are white, and then I have 6 paper holder cubes that sit on the floor next to my desk, and those are white because that's just the color that they came. But my Alex drawers, those are from IKEA, are black. I have a dresser that's from IKEA that's black. The hutch top portion of the shelving that sits above, like hangs on the wall above the dresser, is black with like a rainbow backer, and my bookshelf is black. So I knew that I was kind of leaning towards black, but I didn't want to paint them. I just felt like it was going to be more time consuming, like it would take more layers, and obviously I need something that's going to be pretty durable. So what I opted to do was stain them. And so last night I finished 320ing them. Or I'm sorry, I finished, what was it? 220, 120. What did I do? I think it was 120. I finished that up. Then I 320'd them by hand because I felt like that was faster than the actual power sander. And then I had to vacuum all of them off, clean that, like the desk areas up. I had to get the horses out because there's 4 shelves and they're long. And then I went to go get the stain because my game plan was this IKEA dresser that I have is like a brownish black. Like it's a black, but it's stained, so it looks a little bit brown, and that's kind of what I wanted for the shelves. So I was going to mix a little bit of black stain with a Java, which is a darker brown. But then when I opened the like we've been so out of the garage game for so long now, when I went to go open the Java stain, it was almost completely solid at the bottom, like it had dried out. So then I was like, okay, well, let's see what else I got. So then I found, because at this point, it's like, I was out there after Caitlin went into bed. So I went out there at 8:45. By the time I got around to staining, it's probably 10:30 at night. And I've been up since 7 a.m., like, because I got up with Caitlin and then had to take Peanut to school, her to daycare, worked all day, came home. After picking her up from daycare, my parents actually got Nathan from school yesterday because they had been on vacation and hadn't seen him, so they picked him up and brought him home. But then I had to go get her from daycare, came home from daycare, Eric was home from work, made dinner, while he entertained her. And then I gave her, well, we both kind of intermittently fed her because she was really more interested in chewing on it than eating it. But anyway, gave her bath. He put her to bed. I went to the garage. Like, this is our day. But anyway, so now it's like 10:30 at night and I'm looking for what kind of stain I'm going to use. So I found a carbon gray and I didn't really like it. And then we did have black stain and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to love it, but here I am. Not to mention that these shelves are so heavy. They're 12 by 8s, I think. And I'm not a strong woman. Like, physically, I am not a strong woman. And it's been a long time since I've been in the garage lifting things. So I was kind of struggling a little bit to move them around. But anyway, so it took me probably about an hour and a half to stain them. And I could not. I knew that it didn't matter. Okay, in my head, rationally, I knew it did not matter at all because I was just going to stack stamps on top of them and nobody was ever going to see my stain job. But I could not just like slap it on there and be done with it. I just couldn't. I had to do it the way that I knew was the correct way to do it, even though it took me a longer amount of time. But anyway, so hopefully this weekend I'm able to kind of like tuck that part of my personality in a little bit so that we can get through the vast majority of this room. So at this point, we've colored our pumpkin. I wanted to color the witch and the grass area. That's why I left it lighter with the ink blending in front of the pumpkin because I wanted it to have this little glow about it. You guys have seen me do this a couple of different ways. Halloween, like fall time is a great time for the glow technique because there's so many things you can use it for. Pumpkins, you can use it for like more winter scenes, candles or lanterns, bonfires, like so many things you can use this technique for. I love the glow because it really kind of brings the whole scene together and it's not hard to do and it looks amazing. So on the shoes, that glow was kind of already there almost because of my sloppy coloring. Because when I was doing the pumpkin, I kind of got some yellow on her shoes. But for the rest of it, if you want a really strong glow, you're going to want to leave a white area to color yellow. I didn't want mine to be so in your face. I wanted it to be a bit more subtle. So I am still going to color all the way out to my lightest color. I'm just making sure that with the colors I'm using, when I'm selecting my yellow for my glow, that it's going to be strong enough to be seen over my lightest color. So as I'm coloring this hat here, I am trying to pay attention to the areas that are pointing towards the pumpkin. And really for this part, a little bit will be on the bottom portion of her hat, but most of it's going to hit that brim because it's the closest to the light. So that's why I'm leaving such a large area there that would have, a little bit of reflective light. And for the blacks, my lightest color is a C5, which is a pretty mid-tone gray. It's not super dark. And I know, and then when I'm selecting my yellow, that it will go over it. So for this hat, I used the Y08 because I needed it to be strong enough to show up on the black. For a lot of the other areas, glow, I used a Y02. Like for her little leggings, I used a Y02 because I don't have a lot of dark color there, so I don't need the stronger yellow that I need for the black. I hope that makes sense. So for hers, obviously the glow is coming from the middle right. So the glow on all of her items are going to be on the right-hand side because that is where the light's coming from. even though she's on top of the pumpkin, the glow is going to be then to her bottom right. So all of the glow on her clothes will also be towards the bottom right. And you'll see me sometimes with my pen kind of figuring out the direction. So her little dress has like a little underskirt to it that I colored white, and then I added the glow to that as well. She has very little skin showing. So normally I would use a 4-color blend, but because it's literally like 2 elbows and a little thigh, I just went with the 3 colors, and I figured that would be sufficient, and it was. So I'm doing really minimal shading to this. Where her dress is covering her leg, there would be shading. Where her leg is covering her leg, there will be shading. And then I added shading to the portion of her arms that was furthest away from the pumpkin. And then once that's done, I'm going to use that YO2 again, because again, this skin tone is a lighter color, so I don't need that super strong YO8. For the top of the pumpkin, I just stuck with browns, because I figured that made the most sense. And also they were already out on my desk, honestly. But you could do green, you could do a combination of green and brown, whatever works. I went with the browns, and then I just followed the lines that the illustrator already gave me in order to add my shading. You will notice by her hand, there is a little bit of a white gap, and that's just because when I was doing my stamping, I didn't get a good enough impression because of the mask being in the way, the layer of the mask. So I do go back in later and fill that in with black. I chose purple for her dress because I feel like purple, green, and orange are like Halloween colors, and that just makes sense. Plus she's got on these like fun little gloves. She's a very festive witch. And it almost, because of the size difference, like the witch is a little bit smaller than this giant pumpkin. It's almost like if she was like a little fairy witch, which I think is kind of fun. So yeah, she was super cute. And I just went with a 3-color blend for this one, because I'm going to be adding that yellow glow to a portion of her dress. So when you're doing folds, you want to make sure you're leaving a large portion of a highlight. It's going to look a little silly when you're coloring it. You can see I'm all the way out to my darkest color and how much white is left on her gloves and her skirt. And that is simply because I am making sure that I'm going to have enough area of my lightest color that the lightest color will still be seen and I can still add my glow to it. So just kind of spreading out from the darkest parts with my mid-tone, and then I will cover the whole thing in my lightest color, which in this case is a V15. Something else to note, yellow and purple are complementary colors, which means most of the time they won't work well together if you're putting them, like combining them. But this particular purple is heavier on the pink side, so it does work okay with this YO2, and without making it turn brown. So if you're looking to do something like this, you want to make sure that your purple is not on the blue side, or it's not gonna look good. So again, I used that YO2 because I didn't want anything that was super strong on her dress and glove here. On her glove, I will note that her glow was put on the left-hand side instead of the right, because that is the way that the glow would be coming up from the pumpkin, would then be on her left. So clearly I've sped this up quite a bit, right? So I wanted to show you, I wasn't really sure about doing the glow, like the smile of the glow on the grass, but I did it, and I think it looks okay. I think it looks pretty cool. That's something you could totally skip, though, like, not necessary. And I don't even know if it's really noticeable in the final card, quite honestly, once I stamp my sentiment on it. But I did go in and put in some grasses. I wanted to blend the pumpkin in a little bit better with the grass. So after I got done with my grass, I actually went back in with my black marker and just did a couple of grasses right near the pumpkin so that it would look like it was coming up over the pumpkin. And I felt like that just blended it in a little bit better. At this point, all of the coloring is done. I'm trying to figure out my sentiment. I chose the one that came in this set. It's a good size, which I really felt this pumpkin needed for the balance. And it's a cute little saying. It says, what does it say? Jack-o'-lantern at night, wishing you a hold on, now I gotta look. Now I gotta look and see what it says. Jack-o'-lantern shining bright, wishing you a haunting night. That's what it says. And it's cute, and it rhymes, and it reminds me of something that would be in one of Caitlin's book. So anyway, I stamped that in some embossing ink, and then I'm just using a white detail powder. I think it's a little hard to read on camera, but in real life, it's very easy to read. The white sticks out quite a bit from the background. And then I added some shimmer, and then that's pretty much the whole thing. So, yeah, if you are watching on YouTube, please head over and check out the blog hop so you have a chance to win. And if you choose to make a purchase, please use that main code, the Colorado Craft Company store code in the description so that you are entered for your chance to win. And that's it. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.